Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Gordon Causey, uh, coming live on Wednesday, the 22nd of February. It's now 1:16 a.m. As always, I have Candy, the Wonder Pup. She's on my other side today, knowing that she has to get a treat because she sees me about to do a video. Here she comes. Sit. Give me your pup. Good girl. Lay down. Come on up. Come and get. There you go. That will hopefully keep her quiet while I do the video. Again, Gordon Causey. If you know me from Reddit, my username there is Grow a Set. On Twitter, I'm Gordy Canuck. Whatever. I wanted to talk some more about Asbury, about what's being called by some a revival. Others are saying it's not a revival. Some are saying it's almost the polar opposite of a revival. I've been looking at some more commentary on it, watching some videos. I'm going to reference them. But I figure the word is always a good place to start. And a passage in Scripture came to mind. And with Scripture, it's always important to read context. So the specific passage that came to my mind was, I recalled, where Jesus said to his disciples, he that is not against you is for you. But again, context matters, so I wanted to read the part beforehand. And actually, it's what comes before, I think, speaks directly to what's happening in Asbury. And so I'm going to start midway through verse 43. And it's Luke chapter 9, and I'll be starting midway through verse 43. And what's happened just prior to this passage, Jesus has just cast out a demon from a child. And so the disciples have just witnessed Jesus casting out a demon. And again, Luke chapter 9, starting midway through the 43rd verse. But while they were all marveling at everything he did, he said to his disciples, "Let these words sink into your ears, for the Son of Man is to be delivered into the hands of men." But they did not understand this saying, and it was concealed from them, that they should not perceive it, and they were afraid to ask him about this saying. And an argument arose among them as to which of them was the greatest. But when Jesus perceived the thought of their hearts, he took a child and put him by his side, and said to them, "Whoever receives this child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. For he who is least among you all is the one who is great." John answered, "Master, we saw a man casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him, because he does not follow with us." But Jesus said to him, "Do not forbid him, for he that is not against you is for you." The word of the Lord. I've come across a number of commentary. I want to make one point perfectly clear. I live in southeastern Ontario, Canada. I shared this video on Reddit, and a little bit of discussion took place from it. And I think at least a couple users wanted to know when I had gone to Asbury down to Kentucky. I have not. I have not been to Asbury University, to their seminary down there. It's a bit of a hike. I checked it just to see. I wondered how far it would be. when I was asked that question. Well, it's over 1,000 kilometers, which I reckon would be 600 plus miles, and that's a bit of a hike. If it was close, if it was an hour or two, I'd probably go. But 1,000 kilometers, 600 plus miles, that's a bit of a stretch, and that's something I'm going to touch on. But I listened to a podcast, a woman with a YouTube channel who has been down. Her name is Alisa, Alisa Childers, Childers. And unlike my miserable and pathetic little YouTube channel with very poor production values and a weak internet connection, she has her podcast or her YouTube channel is much better than mine. She has 176,000 subscribers. I haven't even hit 100 yet, and that's neither here nor there. And she went down and she made some observations. She described the setting as sweet, calm, peaceful, and she described as not being dissimilar from the experiences she's had in churches in various places. I gather from her video that she's somewhat widely traveled, and she said she's had this sense of sweet calm in many worship settings. I wanted to read a comment that was posted in response on Reddit, and I thought I had it up, and I have since moved it. So pardon me while I do a bit of clicking around to get the particular comment I want to share. It's about someone who wrote a comment saying that he's been there. Okay, so this is the Christianity forum on Reddit that I participate in from time to time. And this individual thought I had been there, and I asked him to share his thoughts. And what he wrote was, I spent 2 or 3 hours on campus on Wednesday the 15th. The line to get into the main chapel had about 200 piece, and then I went into the chapel across the street. The revival is taking place at Asbury University in Hughes Chapel. Sorry, I'm going to read that again. The revival is taking place at Asbury University in Hughes Chapel. Asbury Seminary is across the street, and the seminary chapel had a live stream of Hughes Chapel. So, I'm gathering he was watching it via live stream. Continuing with what he wrote, while I was there, the main chapel was in a worshipful mode. 2 musicians, a guitar player and a piano player, singing some simple and repetitive worship songs. People were sitting and standing, kneeling and praying and singing, all of the above. I felt very much at peace. I didn't particularly interact with many people that day and quietly made my exit so I could return to my business at home. I returned yesterday, and instead of 200 people being in line, there were 2,000. Instead of one chapel being full, 4 chapels were full. I felt anxious, for although the crowd was joyful and kind, there was a spectator event feeling that just felt wrong. One person was wandering about with a 3-foot-long shofar. That's the horn that they used in Old Testament and probably even in Jesus's day. And somebody asked if she could take his photo and get a video clip of him playing it. And it just felt so commercial to me. but I was able to get into the gymnasium where the live broadcast was going on. And once again, it was a very worshipful experience. I believe the university and the seminary staff are working very hard to accommodate as many people as possible, and that they are aware that they are overwhelmed, that they simply do not have the infrastructure or staff to maintain this as a pilgrimage site that it's become. He goes on, my understanding is that all the worship leaders are prayed for specifically and individually for an hour or 2 or 3 before they are given the microphone, and that the behind the scenes as well as frontline people are almost entirely Gen Z or Gen Z for Americans under 25 years of age. And I appreciate that they have been humble and have not opened the stage to outside speakers and bands. The brief messages I heard encourage people to receive and then to take this home and pour it out there. And his final saying is, people are experiencing Christ. That's one individual's opinion. I've heard a couple contrary opinions. I watched another video who says it's the polar opposite, that it's not revival, that these people are being deceived, that Asbury teaches false doctrine, and so this cannot be of God because they don't have the right doctrine. This is where I'm going to get into the passage that I read at the start of this. But one of the things, one of the negative comments I read on it was, you can go onto YouTube here and you can find from Asbury University the sermon which is said to have started it. And you will be surprised, especially if you come from a charismatic background. For those who don't know what the word charismatic means, think Pentecostal, think tent meeting, think holy rollers, think speaking in tongues, charismatic services tend to be very boisterous, loud, jumping, shouting. There's a lot of excitement in the air. If you're familiar with Neil Diamond's song, Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show, that's charismatic. And when you watch the sermon that is said to have sparked this, the criticism I saw of it was the gentleman criticizing it said it was very, I don't know if he used the word lame, humdrum, but that's the way he described it, as being very wishy-washy and very worldly, he said, because the sermon that was being done was on agape love. In English, we know, we have this all-encompassing word, love. And I've heard sermons on this many times, and how, the word love in English is such a wide blanket term. And this pastor, in addressing the students at Asbury University, was talking about how he loves a certain taco place in Kentucky near the university, or how he loves a certain type of coffee drink, and how he loves his daughter. And being a seminarian, being a pastor, he knows more than me in terms of the Greek language. Agape love is godly love, but there's familial love. There's erotic or lustful love. There's brotherly love, philos, which he said is why Philadelphia is named the city of brotherly love. There's all these different kinds of loves. But what he talked the sermon, and it was like I say, it's a sermon I've heard many, many times, but he was talking about how one has to experience God's love. Think of it in terms of visualizing the cross. You have the vertical love, representative of the cross, and then the horizontal love, the love that we spread out. And that we need to have this love coming down from God above. We have to recognize that love, the love that God has for us, in order to be able to spread it out. But it wasn't delivered in a fiery, charismatic fashion. It was very matter of fact. I recall the pastor at the church I attend, he used a similar term. He kept saying, "Are you tracking with me? Are you tracking with me?" You know, it wasn't it wasn't bouncing up and down and full of fire and excitement. It was very low key. And that seems fitting to me, because without going into scripture, I'm sure many, if you're a Christian, you'll be familiar with the many passages about God using the weak to humble the strong, to using the foolish to humble the wise. God doesn't need a big, powerful, flashy. God used David to slay Goliath. So for a revival to start out of something small and seemingly to our worldly eyes insignificant, and for it to blow up into something big, can God be at work? Can God take something small, make it big? The image of the mustard seed that Jesus used, the smallest of the seeds, at least the smallest that was known of at that time. Maybe there's a smaller seed that we know about now, or in a different part of the world. I don't know. I don't care. My last video, I scripted it. This one I haven't, so I'm just talking off the top of my head. But getting back to what this Alyssa Childers said, and I would invite you, I enjoyed her video, and I would invite you to listen to it. I found it very even-handed. She looking at it from all sides, not making any definitive conclusion. That's up to each and every individual to decide for themselves. But she talked about something that resonated with me, because she said she felt similar experiences in worship in many places. And I have too. There have been times in worship where I've been moved to tears, sometimes during a sermon. Often it happens with the music. Some worship songs really reach into my heart about what God has done for us, for me, in sending Jesus Christ, his son, to die. The passage I just read, but while they were all marveling at everything he did, he said to his disciples, "Let these words sink into your ears, for the Son of Man is to be delivered into the hands of men." Jesus was going to the cross to take on the sins. The penalty of sin is death. And that's a death we all deserve, not just a mortal death, but a spiritual death. The wages of sin is death. Jesus had to pay that penalty to reconcile us to God. But the disciples did not understand it. But they did not understand this saying. It was concealed from them that they should not perceive it. And they were afraid to ask him about this saying. that sermon that is said to have started the revival was about this love that we feel from God. And when these are the moments, the words to the hymn, How Great Thou Art. And when I think that God, his son not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can take it in. For on the cross, my burdens gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin, to make me clean. But they didn't perceive it. And immediately after that, Luke records, and an argument arose among them as to which of them was the greatest. Jesus has just revealed to them, told them, that for the Son of Man is to be delivered into the hands of men. He was letting them know what was coming, but they didn't understand the saying, and it was concealed from them. And they argued, and they wanted to know which one was the greatest. Who has, in today's vernacular, I would say, who has the true doctrine? Who has every doctrinal point down pat? I've referenced a woman here, and I found her words illuminating. I found them very wise. Some will take umbrage with that because I'm ignoring what Paul writes in his letter in Timothy, in Corinthians. I referenced those passages yesterday about how, a woman is to be silent, and that a man is not to accept any instruction from a woman. And then the passage that brought me, the quote that brought me to this section of the Bible, to this section of Luke, was about, Master, we saw a man casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow with us. But Jesus said to him, do not forbid him, for he that is not against you is for you. To those who don't think what's happening in Asbury, if they think it's demonic, I would ask you just to look at that passage. Nothing's being spoken about demonic down there. Listen to the sermon. There's nothing demonic. It may be a little boring. It might be a little, you probably, if you go to church, you probably heard a similar type sermon or similar type words about how we trivialize love, and how love in the Greek, in the ancient Greek that the Bible is written in, that there are different forms of love, and that godly love, agape love, if we can recognize that, then we can better spread it across the horizontal plane and reach out. And finally, I'm going to end it off because I don't want to go on too long. I got a couple other points that I wrote down. One in this video by Alyssa Childers. She quotes the Old Testament passage. Probably, I'm very bad in terms of saying what, when I remembered this, for he that is not against you is for you. I remembered that line, but did I know if it was in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John? No. I just remember the passage. Without Google, I would have been having to pour through my Bible or, look up going through indexes and things. Google makes life easier. She references the story of Josiah. I don't know whether it's in Chronicles. I don't know whether it's in Kings. I'm thinking it might be in one, the other, or in both. But Josiah became king when he was 8 years old, and um, the temple had fallen into disrepair, and the people of Israel were no longer God's chosen people, were no longer his covenant people, were no longer uh, living up to their end of the bargain. They were no longer adhering to the covenant agreement that they'd made to be, the covenant God made with his chosen people. It was a two-way street. You do this, I'll do that, is what God was saying. And Israel had ceased doing that which it was supposed to do. They had forgotten, is the word used. They had forgotten. And in doing renovations, repairs on the temple, a book of the law was found that had been lost. And it was read to Josiah, and it is said that he tore his clothes, which to this day, that is something Jews will do when they're in mourning. If someone dies, an article of clothing, a shirt maybe, is torn. So then the word was read to them, and the law was read to them, and they heard again that which they had forgotten. When it comes to the students at Asbury University, at Asbury Seminary, they're going to a Christian university. I can't imagine that they have forgotten, but forgotten means forgotten. I tend to think, and this is true in my own experience, even about Christians, we need reminding. We need reminding of things. And what my fervent prayer is that this event in Asbury, that it would lead to the gospel good news of God's saving grace through Jesus's atoning death on the cross, that this good news would spread beyond those who need reminding, to those who have not even forgotten, who have never heard it. We live in a post-Christian culture. There are people today who have never been to church, who don't even own a Bible. The bedrock of our Western world, the Judeo-Christian values on which the United States, Canada, Western Europe, much of the world, this has been the basis of our societies, the basis of our cultures. And we, as a society, we've forgotten. In Canada, which is where I live, our Parliament building, the equivalent of Capitol Hill, if you will, in the United States, our Parliament building has a tower, big peace tower, kind of like Big Ben in England. And the foundational stones contain biblical passages. That's how foundational. Our coat of arms quotes scripture, quotes one of the Psalms. The preamble to the Canadian Constitution recognizes the supremacy of God. Not even, the American preamble doesn't even recognize God. I even know I spent 10 years, almost 10 years growing up in the United States. I still remember your preamble. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, ensure the general welfare, and promote the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. In the United States, the beacon on the hill, I'm amazed that our preamble mentions the supremacy of God, whereas Canada is founded. Uh, I forget the exact wording. I remember the American preamble, which is longer, and I can't remember. The Canadian preamble is 1 or 2 sentences, but it does, whereas Canada is a nation that recognizes the supremacy of God and the rule of law, and one follows from the other. So we've forgotten. People don't know in my country. People don't know that scriptural passages are engraved on the stones of the foundational stones of the Peace Tower at Parliament Hill. They don't know that the coat of arms contains words from the Psalms. I forget which Psalm. And that, our Constitution, Canadians don't know the preamble. And we need to be reminded, and the message has to go beyond those of us who just need reminding to those who have never even heard the gospel good news of Jesus Christ. And sharing the gospel, my final point, I'm going on way too long, I'm sorry. Sharing the gospel is hard. I was doing it just tonight. It's doing it on a video like this, it's easy because there's no reaction. I'm just looking at my own face, at my own gestures. And so there's no fear of rebuke, no fear of someone attacking. But sharing the gospel face to face is not easy. And tonight I can give an example as to why. I was talking to a young lad at work. I work in a large retail environment. You take from that what you will. I've worked there for almost a year now. I had been in the Canadian Army, released from the Canadian Army in May of 2021, and then started working at this establishment in May of 2022. And most of the workforce I'm one of the older guys. I'm not the oldest, but I'm one of the older ones. And there's a lot of high school kids and a lot of young 20-somethings. And this young lad, Tyler, 20-ish years of age. And I've been encouraging him to come out to church. And then I use that as a springboard to talk about the gospel. So while I was at work, I was talking to Tyler about coming out to church, and he's receptive. He's like, yeah, as soon as I'm off on a Sunday, I'll come. And I said, great, because there's some good stuff there. You don't have to go to church, but it helps. And just then there was a young lad out in the parking lot who I work with as well. And I looked over at him and I say, Josh, have you ever been to church? Do you go to church? And Josh said to me, he said, oh, I went when I was really little. I said, did you enjoy it? And he goes, I hardly remember. I said, you want to come out to church sometime? Let me know. And it's pretty non-committal. And then another woman, and here's where it gets difficult. Another woman came by who also works there. And she said, going to church doesn't make you a good person. There are lots of bad people in churches. And I didn't disagree with her. I said, you know what? You're right. You are right. She goes, religion isn't the answer. A lot of religious people aren't good people. And I said, that's true. I said, and then I made the point, and it's a common point. I've got nothing new under the sun. I'm just chasing the wind like everyone else. But I said, because I genuinely believe it, I said, religion, if it serves as a vehicle to further a relationship with God, then religion is to the good. I said, where religion gets into trouble is where it becomes an end in of itself. where it's not a means to an end. Religion is the means by which we connect to God and build a relationship with God. And if it serves that purpose, it's to the good. But sometimes it all becomes about the ritual and not about the relationship. And she said, "Oh, I've heard that argument before, and it just doesn't wash." And then she went on to share an experience that was tough to hear. She had been abused as a child. She said, "I prayed to God every day when I was 5 for the abuse to end, and God didn't answer." That's a tough one. And it's probably one of the most common questions, or the most common arguments put out by those who espouse an atheistic view. If there is a God, why do bad things happen? Why is a 5-year-old little girl abused? And I have an answer. But it's not something you can share in a short 2-3 minute little, even 5-10 minute conversation. And I've already gone on with this video for 36 minutes. God does not prevent all the bad things from happening in this world, the same as even the best parent in the world is not able to prevent all harm from happening to his children. Bad things happen in this world. God is there to help us heal and to lead us to life everlasting in his presence, where that is washed away. The hurt, the pain, the anger, which are all negative emotions. I'll invite you to go into the Bible and look up the fruits of the Spirit. I forget all of them. But I spoke earlier of the fact that I've been brought to tears in church when I feel that love pouring in to me. I don't think I have to, and I don't have to go to Kentucky to experience it. And I don't think anyone does. I understand the motivation behind people going there. But you can have it right where you are. You can have it right now. You can have it today. And finding a good church helps. Finding a good church helps. I love my church. I've had some amazing experiences there, and some of the best experiences. I haven't had it for a while, but I've had it. It's happened to me on a few occasions where such an overwhelming feeling of peace has overcome me during a worship service that I have felt like I basically, in of myself, I don't exist. You know, I don't know. I don't have words to describe it. Just, it's like time is suspended. Everything is suspended, and I am just at total peace, rest, and comfort. And the sad part is, as soon as I become aware of it, I commune in that feeling for I don't know how long. It might last 10 seconds. It might last 10 minutes. I don't know how long I'm in it. But as soon as I become aware of it and say, wow, I feel, as soon as I start to make it tangible, that's when it goes away like a dream. And it disappears like a disappearing dream, the way your dreams kind of just fade away. And that's what it feels like. So anyway, I'll again invite you, Alyssa Childers, I think, or Childers. I would pronounce it Childers. She has a very good video. And if you're curious about this, to hear the perspective of someone who's actually been there, she is one. And she has some fantastic thoughts. And echoing what I said in my previous video, if you're, I gave the quote about Luke 9, this is verse 46, and an argument arose among them, among the disciples, as to which of them was the greatest. And I almost feel like that's what is happening now. Don't go to that, they're Methodists. They follow this Wesleyan tradition. That's the wrong doctrine. My doctrine, the doctrine I follow, is better. My doctrine is greater than that doctrine. And let God do the work. Jesus saying, do not forbid him, for he that is not against you is for you. Introduce people to Jesus. And let the Spirit do the work. So God bless. Thanks for watching. And I'm going out tomorrow night. It's Wednesday already now. I'm going out to play basketball. So it might be, I haven't dribbled a basketball now for 3 years. We'll see how I do, if I can still move tomorrow night. So pray for me, please. And God bless. Good night all.